All good. Welcoming everyone to the Irish NFL show live Monday night. Anything happened over the last day or so, boys? How are we doing? Good.
Very good. Yeah, it's been as always. It doesn't stop in the NFL. We had last night's drama that I think we'll come to a little bit later on, but obviously the tampering period began today, and plenty to discuss with that.
Brian, how's it going?
Grant, as Conor said, today has already been a bit chaotic in terms of the amount of signings we've seen since 4 o'clock today, and I suppose there was a few that have come to fruition. Here's what had been speculated during the week, and obviously last night's Brady's return, which didn't come as a surprise. But look, at the NFL, as Colin said many times, it's an all-year round kind of game now. Despite the fact we're not seeing any matches, there's always something to be discussing.
Yeah, let us know your thoughts, folks. Obviously, so many different topics to talk about. I guess just to start off the show, let's get everyone's thoughts on this panel, just of the day that it's been so far. I'll just say one thing. What the hell are Jacksonville doing? Is Doug Peterson having a laugh? There's people like congratulating him and stuff this evening. It feels like I've give my wee brother who I haven't got like a 6-year-old brother or 7-year-old brother. It feels like giving the PlayStation controller, and he's playing Madden career mode, and he's got like a bit of he's got like 70 million cap or whatever, and he's just taking the piss. So Colin, what's your thoughts today?
Well, I suppose, look, for Jacksonville, it's about trying to shore things up for Trevor Lawrence and give him a couple of weapons. I think you're always going to end up having to pay a premium if you're Jacksonville. That's the reality in terms of trying to attract people there, although Florida's lack of a state tax definitely helps in that regard. I do think one of the things to bear in mind at this time of year is the headline figures that you're going to see. When the contract details come out, it might not be quite the deals that you're seeing. You're going to see the splash figures. So say for Christian Kirk, obviously 84 million was what was being reported. It would appear out of that 84, 37 is guaranteed, and it's really in the first couple of years. So obviously huge money, but that's what happens at this time of year. I suppose, you know, there are a couple of things that stand out. The Mitchell Trubisky going to the Steelers is, you know, a big one in terms of, you know, what were they going to do to replace Big Ben? By all accounts, everything, you know, that they've been saying today is they're trying to do, you know, just roll with it and see what's going to happen in a year where I suppose they didn't feel that they were going to be in the sweepstakes, or didn't want to be in the sweepstakes to get a Russell Wilson. What were their options? They, you know, whether they feel that there's somebody in the first round or not. We don't have, I don't think, any of the contract details on Trubisky as yet. I'm very interested to see exactly what that money looks like. I don't think it's going to be huge money, and it could well be that they see it as a bridge. But I think for them, they probably didn't, you know, see a realistic, you know, replacement for Big Ben there. They're maybe rolling the dice on Trubisky to see what can happen. I go back to, we discussed it on the show maybe last week or the week before, Jerry Jones said that not having a succession plan after Troy Aikman cost them 10 years. Could that be the issue for the Steelers? It will be interesting because, you know, the Giants had a look, but I think the price was too much for what they felt. Now that tells you that Brian Daboll feels that Trubisky has the talent, but he's not prepared to commit to it. So I think the Steelers have a job on their hands, but look, they're getting a guy who is, you know, mobile in comparison to the statuesque Big Ben that we've seen, and that, you know, a storied franchise. So it was always going to be one of the interesting ones. And I suppose, look, they didn't have to give up anything to bring him in.
One quarterback Colin hasn't mentioned, Deshaun Watson. Obviously, since we've last reported, he's now being cleared essentially to get his trade. You know, obviously the civil actions are still to come, but it seems this evening that it's the Saints to the Panthers. He's pulled the plug on a number of deals. I don't think the Steelers were ever in the picture. And this kind of goes back to the point Colin said last week. There wasn't a lot of options quarterback-wise this offseason in terms of where you go. For me today, it's about offensive line, because we always talk about the quarterback league, but the offensive line, if you don't look after your quarterback, how long does it last? We've seen the Bengals today very quickly, and a lot of people are already saying they're overpaying, but look, they know they've had a situation throughout the playoffs and the Super Bowl where they've had to bring players in, and they brought 2 players in with a lot of experience. Karras, the centre from the Patriots, has come in. It looked like he was going to get his payday. And Alex Kappa, who's with us with the Bucks, has come in. So it looks like they've got really big deals. But look, the Bengals are already trying to correct their wrongs. I was trying to keep an eye on the draft in all this today. The Jags last week tagged Cam Robinson. Today they've taken in Brandon Sheriff from Washington. That to me means they're not going to go with an offensive line in the first round. It doesn't really make any sense. I think they'll be going for Hutchinson or Thibodeau. And then the Jets are 4. Thinking again for the draft league. Jets are 4. They've gone offensive line today with a big splash, bringing in Tomlinson, who was really highly touted in terms of one of the bigger players available on the offensive line from the 49ers. So interesting to see what strategy they take early on in the draft, because it looks like they've gone all in to try correct as many of their problems on the offensive line today. And I imagine there's going to be more big signings as the evening goes on.
We are presented by Trust Gaming. You can check out trustgaming.com for more information. We're also presented by Mini Arcade Systems, the biggest mini arcade system company in Ireland. And we're also presented by the College Football Classic, the Aer Lingus College Football Classic, Northwestern Nebraska, this August, the kickoff of American football in the world, taking place in Dublin. Look, let's get into it. If you have any comments, search for us on YouTube, search an Irish NFL show. You can put the comments on. Fred Flunk is saying, even lads, Jesus, I need to buy a lottery ticket in Kirk Cousins' local centre. We'll talk about that in a bit. Keith's getting comments in, Flinner's getting comments in. I will try and read them out as soon as possible, folks, in regards to that there. I'll start off if you want to bounce off this, lads. Jesse Jackson, 5-year, $82.5 million deal from the Patriots to the Chargers. The Chargers now are starting to look scary. The AFC West is looking scary, and I just can't wait for week 1 at the minute. That includes $40 million guaranteed. Jesse Jackson in 4 seasons has got 25 interceptions. Jalen Ramsey only has 15 in 7 seasons. Jesse Jackson averages more pass deflections per year and has had a less than 50% completion rate on balls thrown in his coverage column. The Chargers are going for it. I mean, they have to with the quarterbacks they're going up against, and obviously they've got a hell of a quarterback with the potential there in Justin Herbert. But what was your thoughts when you seen this Jesse Jackson news earlier on?
Yeah, it's a really interesting one. I think I have been a kind of admirer of the Chargers as much as one can be when they're in your division. But I think Herbert is absolutely fantastic. I like a lot of the moves they have made. I'm really interested on the JC Jackson one, because he is extraordinarily talented, right? You've outlined, some of the stats there, Michael, but cornerbacks who've left Bill Belichick's system, when they have been cornerbacks who he's either drafted or brought in as undrafted free agents, they've struggled a little bit. They haven't quite maybe reached the levels that they did under Belichick. So JC Jackson certainly has the ability to replicate that. I'm just interested to see if he can. I just wonder about the Chargers. They've Mike Williams they extended. They brought in Mack. I still think they have issues in terms of stopping the run. Obviously, having the pass rushers there and having the cornerbacks is going to help. But I'm interested to see what they do in terms of looking to shore things up. They're certainly going all in, and I think Sam Monson rightly said there's going to be all sorts of preseason predictions about the Chargers, winning the Super Bowl. It's going to be interesting. This is a team that in 2010 famously #1 offense, #1 defense, and they don't make the playoffs. Will that be the case? Can they stay fit? If they stay fit and they play to their potential, look, they should be there or thereabouts. But it's all about what you roll the dice a little bit in free agency, and you see how it shakes out later on.
But it's evident, even in never mind what's happened in the past week, the Russell Wilson situation. 4 quarterbacks in the division. Okay, 3 that they have to go against who are high quality. Arguably, it's the best division in football, certainly the best division when it comes to quarterback. And last year, defensively, in the second, they struggled, and they struggled to stop the run. If you listen to the ESPN draft podcast, they clearly say that there's going to be a run on defensive tackles in the mid-range of the first round, and that's where the Chargers come into play. And I imagine that's what they're thinking. If we can get some signings in defensively and put a plan in place for next season, because there's many a time last season when we felt the Chargers were going to go on a run, and every time it looked like they were ready to pounce, they kept falling flat because of their defense. And Herbert put up so many points and just couldn't save them at times. They've also brought it, as Colin called it. We had the joys of Adam Rank announcing that deal of Khalil Mack going over there. So look, I think they know they've got a really strong offense, and it's a case of trying to find the right players and fill the holes defensively to make sure that they can be competitive against it. It's going to be a very, very good and very strong division come next season.
Keep the comments coming in, folks. I'm just going to jump. So, boys, if there's different players, shout. Christian Kirk going to the Jaguars. So we're going to see him in London this year. Just the $84 million or up to $84 million deal. That makes him the third highest paid wide receiver in the league. Colin, couple of things. Can we get this guy's agent on the phone and get him just to hook up to our show now and just get him to put him in charge of everything? And if you're Devontae Adams and there's been talk all day today that he doesn't want to play under the tag, you must be looking at this and going, haha, happy days.
Well, I imagine a lot of the wide receivers are looking at it and kind of saying, this if that's what Christian Kirk is getting, then I should be getting a whole lot more. And we had James Palmer on with us last night, and as James Palmer has said, it's rumored that the cap is going to go up 20% next year. It's rumored that the cap is going to go up 20% again the following year. I mean, that's huge increases. So I suppose that's the other thing that, you're looking at it now, and what might seem like, an enormous deal now might be a little easier an easier pill to swallow in a few years if the cap has gone up significantly. This is the reality of the league now in terms of wide receivers getting paid. We see Cedric Wilson, another wide receiver who got decent money. So for, I think, Christian Kirk, it's an interesting one, because if you look at him, he's 25, but I suppose they're banking on him being able to take the next step and to really elevate his game. And you would say that with Doug Peterson, with Trevor Lawrence, he certainly has an offensive-minded head coach and a QB who can make big plays. I think he's got 2 years realistically. That's where they have the get out after 2 years. So it'll be an interesting one. But I suppose for Jacksonville as well, part of it is they want to get a buzz, they want to get some excitement, because they need to fill seats in that stadium.
What I'd ask the question is he a number one receiver? Like, is he going to step in there with that kind of money? He should be declared as the number one receiver in the team. Like we saw Amari Cooper going the weekend. We'll probably come to that in a second. But when he was in Arizona, he didn't strike me. Obviously, D-Hop was there, and he's the number one receiver. Last year, they drafted Moore. He was really good. And Kirk has had a very good season. But I don't think there's anyone genuinely out there. There's a few Cards fans who watch the show, and I doubt they all would turn around and say he could step up to be the number one receiver. Look, he's been well taken care of. But, players, did he really want to go and play in Jacksonville? I think that's the problem. So that's all set by a bit of a compensation package in terms of the salary they get.
Do you think that rules Juju out, Brian, completely?
I don't know what's happened with Juju, because last year he was a free agent and no one really went for him. I think he got a misconception of where he was on the board in terms of what teams would think of him as a wide receiver. He went back to the Steelers on a very much a prove-it type of deal. And did he do a lot last season? I suppose you could argue Big Ben was struggling for large parts of the season, but he's out there, and he still hasn't got a deal, So it'd be interesting to see. The Cork one took me. Look, we knew he was going to get paid, but I didn't think that's significant cash. But Colin was right. Maybe that money's going to be offset in 2 years in terms of how the contract is constructed.
Brian mentioned in their column, Amari Cooper going to the Browns. First off, this Ezekiel Elliott deal for Dallas looks like it's going to haunt them, and I've seen so many tweets over the last couple of days talking about 2023 and Sean Payton, and for a team like the Dallas Cowboys, the position they're currently in. But do you agree with what the Browns are doing? I think it's good. It gives Baker that one last big shot with his team. And looking at the Steelers today, it's an interesting concept. I know we'll probably talk about Mitch next, but it's an interesting move for the Browns.
Yeah, well, it is obviously. Look, Amari Cooper is a very talented wide receiver, but the Cowboys seem to have gotten themselves obviously into all sorts of kind of cap issues, and I think I saw a comment from Keith, and he was rightly mentioning that Collins, they may have to release him rather than being able to find a trade partner. It's a huge year now for Baker. If he's he will be there, I imagine, because I don't think that they're gonna have the option of bringing somebody else in. But it didn't obviously work with Odell. Jarvis Landry is now out, so they bring in Cooper. So you've got two out. You've brought Cooper in. We all had big expectations last year. But it was their offense. They just couldn't ever really get it going. So Kevin Stefanski has a big job on his hands there. I think Cooper was probably the most talented of the Cowboys wide receivers. I don't know if CD, they want CD obviously to take the step up. He has to do that. It's a big step up that he has got to make. I think Cooper is more of a WR1. So for the Browns, look, you swing, you got to do something, right? Because Baker's there. You've got the season coming up. Amari Cooper is a very good player. I think for the Browns in that respect, it makes sense to bring Cooper in. The question is Baker good enough to, take them back to the playoffs and actually have a real go at the playoffs?
Going back to last season with the Cowboys, I know they had a really successful season. They won the division. Okay, they got it down to the playoffs. But if there was a lot of games where Cooper didn't get the looks that you'd expect for the number one wide receiver. And there was a lot of Cowboys fans, as we know, we followed the show, and at the weekend they were a bit disappointed with the trade. I think inevitably what it came down to was the fact that the Browns were going to take the full $20 million of the contract onto their cap, and that's where the Cowboys are financially at the moment. They had no choice but to take it, and I think that's the reason why they are left only taking a fifth round pick. And look, you're going to swing up players in the fifth round. You don't know if they're going to come out to be a great player. Look, it's the Baker Mayfield show, and as I said many a time early last season, where people were looking at him thinking I was mad. He's not the answer. He's never going to be the answer there. They need to move on from him. And I saw a report today that they were even in play for Deshaun Watson, and they were going to put Baker Mayfield in the deal. And I imagine they've already proposed that. It's probably been shut down because he doesn't want to go to Cleveland. It's a good move, and he's a good player, and he'll probably do well there with the right quarterback. Well, whether Baker Mayfield is the right quarterback is the real question.
Yep, and thanks everyone watching, listening, either Twitter, YouTube, Facebook. You can comment on Facebook and YouTube. We'll get your comments read out as soon as we can. We've got a couple of special guests coming up in the show tonight as well. Brian, I know you have a point to make. I've actually got a new segment in the show which I haven't told anybody about, so you may want to make your point on that. I've wanted to use my hero for a long time in the show, and I think free agency, it's the best one. The man, the myth, the legend. Do you reckon we could actually get Marty Whelan on this for the Crack Boys, or what do you think? Do you think he'd come on?
I'd say come on for the crack. If you keep putting that photograph on, I think he'd be interested.
I'm going to spin the wheel here, Brian, and you're first. So what's your point? Go for it.
No, before we came on the show this evening, I imagine it was a Colts fan. He asked a question which he was looking for a response. I don't think we went back, so probably the right time to discuss it. He's asking, is it Mariota or Jimmy G that's the right player for them? Because they have no quarterback after last week's trade, and there was a bit of speculation they're going to go after Love from the Packers because he's probably available now. For me, I'd probably say Jimmy G is the right man there as opposed to Mariota. He's cut out of Tennessee, and everybody thinks he's the best backup since sliced bread because he comes in, he runs a few particular plays for the Raiders. But those plays that suit him quickly goes out again. He's another Jacoby Brissett in a sense. He comes in, runs a few plays, predominantly a run play as well. He's not shown the ball very often. I know he's had a few good games when he's come in, but for me, Jimmy G would be the better option there. And I know, as Colin rightly calls it, Jimmy has his flaws, but for where the Colts are, Jimmy G has got teams to the playoffs, and ultimately that's where they need to be, and I think he'd be the better option in the long run to go to Indy.
Column, a couple of tweets come out. I think it was actually, I don't know who this was, a few minutes before the show went live. The Colts approached the Texans, apparently about Deshaun Watson. The Colts were shot down immediately. Who do you think would be under center for the Colts come week 1?
Well, I think this is what happens when billionaires make maybe emotional decisions. Obviously, it didn't work with Wentz, but I don't think it was all on Wentz. And, they went, Frank Reich brought him in, but now what they do? Is Jimmy G really going to be that much of an upgrade over Carson Wentz? Carson Wentz was never the answer, and they kind of went and put all their eggs in that basket. And the problem is that they have a really good team there. They need a QB, but there's nobody else really out there. As you said, they went and they asked about Watson, despite being divisional rivals and despite all the baggage that he would have, because they're desperately trying to do something. If I think it probably is likely to be Jimmy G, just because I think they'll have to do something. I don't think you can run it back with the guys that they have there on the roster currently, and they have a serious team. They have one of the best running backs in the league. They have a serious offensive line. They have a very good defense. So I imagine this is going to be an idea where they're going to want to say perhaps they can scheme around Jimmy G, but I think it's essentially the nightclub is going to be closing, the lights are coming on, and basically they're going to be left with whatever's on the dance floor.
The dance floor, spinning on the dance floor. Have you got a topic you want to talk about, or do you want me to bounce in?
I want to talk about the Packers, because we saw the Rodgers deal last week. Then Devontae Adams was tagged, and we thought that was the end of it, and they'd move on. And I saw a list as long as your arm of players that they need to figure out come Wednesday's deadline, because I think on 8 o'clock our time Wednesday they have to be under the cap. So they start kind of making quite a few moves today. So not like free agency moves, but like Adams has come out and said he's not going to play on the cap. I think he's just johnnying for position early on in the Grand National before he gets his contract. But Z Smith got released. Preston Smith was the man who got kept, and Campbell got another massive contract, $50 million over 5 years. So they're already playing silly buggers in terms of trying to find a way to get themselves ready for Wednesday. And look, this is inevitable, because the reality is the quarterback is consuming a significant amount of cash from the cap, so they're going to have to move things around. I even saw today Mason Crosby was potentially being released at $2 million. I mean, you're not going to get it. Probably, I know he had his flaws last year as a kicker, but by and large, I don't think you're going to find a better kicker in the league for $2 million. And that's where it is. There's desperate times ahead for the Packers, despite the team that they have.
Absolutely. The thing that got me, it was one of the first ones after work in our time zone, was Mitch Trubisky, 2-year deal with the Steelers. It's a really interesting deal, and I really want to watch what they say, because it's the 14th of March. But I was surprised. I understand that there's not a lot of talent out there at the minute, Colin, in terms of free agent quarterbacks, and you need a quarterback for your team. You need a good quarterback, one you can rely on. If Mitch, it didn't work out in Chicago long term, is Justin Fields a better option than Mr. Trubisky? I said at the Jeff Ryan Bowl earlier on. It's an intriguing option, and yeah, we can sit here and we can say that Pittsburgh are going to draft someone. This draft this year is in no way like obviously maybe somebody might come out of the draft and go, oh, they're fantastic, but there's no real standout. So if you're a Steelers fan, Colin, how do you feel? Because it's been a very mixed reaction online tonight, and I personally don't really buy the Trubisky hype. I don't know. I mean, look, I hope it works out for him, because I want that division to get obviously more competitive from a neutral standpoint, but it's just surprising.
Yeah, I think that saying that it's a mixed reaction is being very kind. I think there are some Steelers fans who'd like to burn it down to the ground. But given the success that they've enjoyed, relative success under Mike Tomlin, but they haven't had a losing season. It's a tough one, right? Because as Andrew Brandt consistently says, the last time you want to be looking for a QB is when you need a QB, and they're in that situation, I suppose. And yeah, this is you never know how players transition into the league, but the reality is that everyone tells us this is not a particularly strong QB class. Everyone has flaws. Everyone has some sort of a project. Now, it might well be right that we're talking about Mitch this evening, and in what is it, 6-7 weeks time, it's less than 50 days from the draft. Certainly you are realistically, they take somebody, and say you take somebody in the first round, there's always the optimism, certainly until that player has been on the field at least a while. But the Broncos had optimism around Paxton Lynch. When the Bears took Trubisky originally, there was a lot of optimism. So it could be that they decide that maybe Malik Willis is going to be the future. They draft him and they use Mitch Trubisky as kind of a bridge into bringing somebody in. I think it won't be until after the draft has played out that we really know where the Steelers are at and how committed they are to Mitch Trubisky. But look, this is the issue in the NFL. There are only 32 teams, but there are not 32 franchise quarterbacks. That's just the reality.
I think it's a fair shout they might go after Kenny Pickett in the draft. He's in Pittsburgh. They use a lot of the facilities, the college team, that the Steelers have. I imagine they've already got a lot of looks at him, and it certainly strikes as a team that needs a quarterback, like it comes at a bridge quarterback now, to allow a rookie to come in and potentially give him a year, see how it goes, or maybe late in the season he gets an opportunity. It looks to boy like as the Giants were in for Trubisky, but the Giants are very much. I said to Colin last week, the Giants are going to remind me of where the Broncos were last year, quarterback position. Bring in quarterback to challenge Daniel Jones, and if he wins out, he wins out, and if he doesn't, it's the backup. But I believe one, Dable pulled back slightly when he saw the money that was involved, which tells you a lot of what he thinks Brandon Money's been with him for the last year. And second of all, the other side of the coin was that Trubisky wanted to get assurances that he'd be playing immediately, which he's already got from Pittsburgh. So look, in a way it's a big drop off, and there isn't a big drop off because we saw Big Ben towards the end of last season how much he struggled, and yet he still found a way to get them to the playoffs. But he wasn't good last year. But they're going from such a legend to Mitch Trubisky, so I can't see it in a long-term plan.
Time will tell. I'm going to spin the wheel now. Marty Whelan. This is it. This is the last one. I'm sorry, but I'm going to talk about the biggest news of the last week. It's Tom Brady coming back. Now we're all in disagreement here. I'm surprised at this happening, and I genuinely was reading Mike Florio's articles on Tuesday and Wednesday, thinking this guy's nuts. Like, this is mad. He's not coming back. Yeah. I was surprised. It was me that replied under a status, "Oh my God," and like all the exclamation marks. I'm surprised it happened, but now I'm starting to think, was it a power play to try and get out? Did he want to get out? What happened with the Glazers? Why the hell was he in Manchester on Saturday night? And well, this is good timing. Who are you?
He must have just watched the show, waiting for Brady, and said, "I'll join in."
I tell you what,
anything happening in the NFL? Something going on?
We'll give Mark like the first say here. Let me just finish off 2 seconds. I just think it's intriguing, like what really went down. I think we'll know someday what went down. I still think he was retiring, and I go back to his performance in the latter half of the season while it was still very productive and a lot better than Mr. Trubisky could probably do for the Steelers. I am intrigued to see how 44-year-old coming 45-year-old Tom Brady will play in the NFL. But for a neutral fan base, it's fantastic. It looks like it's going to be Brady against Mahomes in Munich. And by God, if we somehow get in, that's a bigger achievement than getting into the Super Bowl. Hi, Mark.
Hi, gents. Been quiet. I mean, nothing ever goes on the NFL, does it? But good to see Tom Brady back again. 39 days, guys. The MLB.
You had a longer absence than Tom Brady then.
I've probably been gone just about as long as Tom Brady's been gone. But, he comes back and I suddenly find my way out of the woodwork. I will say this. I was thinking this the other week before he came back. Is like that Bucks team has disappeared in no time at all, because you had Ali Marpet suddenly retire, and you had obviously Jensen and Kappa, this great interior offensive line, both up in free agency. And it's all well and good Brady coming back, and they franchised Chris Godwin, but they still need to find a replacement for Antonio Brown, obviously, that they didn't towards the end of last year. And now they're looking at replacing 2/3 of their offensive line. Marpet's staying retired, apparently, and Kappa has gone to the Bengals, who we all know needed offensive line help. So they've picked up Kappa and they've picked up Ted Karras. So they've gone a long way in that. What's the one thing Tom Brady doesn't like? Oh, that's right. Pressure up the interior offensive line. So methinks that might be a bit of a focus for Tampa Bay during the rest of free agency.
They've signed Will Hernandez this evening, who was with the Giants previously. So
they've signed a Giants offensive lineman, Brian. I think that strikes fear in every Tampa Bay Buccaneers fans' hearts.
I said to a Bucs fan earlier, it's good to see bad play getting rewarded.
Tom Brady? No, it's Tom Brady. No.
He needs a line, and it's amazing to see him come back. Isn't it great, guys? We had a whole couple of months not talking about Tom Brady, and we get to talk about him again. It's fantastic.
This is like a wake, and you're at the wake, and the body pops up about 5 minutes before they're going to close the casket. This is what I feel.
Michael, do you remember? You keep bringing up the Paddy's Day a couple of years ago when Brady declared he was leaving the Patriots, and you're going, "Oh, it's the best Patrick's Day ever." I'm going to enjoy this Patrick's Day now. I'm going to enjoy this. I don't enjoy J.C. Jackson. Looks like he's going to the Chargers. Don't know if it's been announced, but
gone.
Yeah, he's gone. There you go. That's not good news. But Brady coming back is good for the NFL. Some of the moves that have gone on are great. Yeah, Trubisky to the Steelers, I just heard you talk about. Jesus. That's going to be...
Well, Mark, you've been very quiet over the last week. Very, very quiet. And Colin, do you want to go next? Has anything happened over the last week? I mean, it's good to get a few quarterbacks around the league. But Colin, Tom Brady back? Yay, nay? Try and find a way to put Russell Wilson in that sentence for Mark.
I'm not surprised it's been talked about. There's been the asterisks ever since he as has been said, he never mentioned retirement in that statement. I think Tom needs to have a bit of a persecution complex in order to be at his best. We all remember those, the "We're Still Here," the Patriots. Remember that? The poor put upon "We're Still Here" Patriots, as if they were a plucky franchise who were up against the world. I think possibly, he's 45. We know what Tom Brady is. To me, it's boring. I genuinely don't get it. Like, he's back. We know what Tom Brady is. He is a very competitive. I talked about it. I have never seen a player with who approaches the game in that way. But it's going to be the same Tom Brady that we see. I mean, Tom Brady essentially, I think, looked at it, got what he wanted out of it, got people to say nice things, got the persecution complex. Russell Wilson leaves. There's nobody. He's in there's an absolute desert of talent at the QB position in his division. There's nobody there. And so why not come back and make another run of it? But to me, I'd much prefer to be talking about splash plays and exciting on-field stuff rather than some sort of WWE, Hulk Hogan or The Undertaker or Shawn Michaels is back. This is just ultimately, just make a decision, Tom. But it's Tom Brady's world, and we're all living in it.
When he did announce whatever he announced last month, because Colin doesn't declare a retirement, he put out a statement saying he was packing him in for a while. People were saying, it's the right time to go. He struggled all season. They were second in the the order, the playoffs. Tim struggled a lot of injuries last year. 5,300 yards, 43 touchdowns, 12 interceptions. Previous season, 4.6 in terms of throwing yards, 40 touchdowns. So he had a better season last year, and he was struggling. So I think he'll be fine next season, to be honest. I think he'll come back even more. motivated to come back and get the Bucks back. And the reality is, like Com said, the division, the Falcons are in a rebuild. The Panthers, I don't know where the Panthers are. They're somewhere out there. They're going to have Deshaun Watson maybe, so might spike things up a little bit. And who am I missing? The Saints. They'll have Deshaun Watson. So one of them in the division is getting Deshaun Watson.
The Saints who have lost Breeze and now they've lost Peyton. Oh, that's a good pattern.
Hold on. We should be hoping that the Saints. We should be hoping the Saints get Deshaun, because then you could have Deshaun in London against maybe the Bengals.
Potentially that would be a great game. But the reality is, all jokes aside, I think the division is there for the Bucks. And even if they were to bring in a bridge quarterback this season, I felt that it'd be there for them. And then the reality is, you get to the playoffs and you're swinging for 2 games potentially to be with a chance of going back to Super Bowl. So the Bucks have a legitimate chance. And to Mark's point, it's no surprise that Davis, the cornerback, is signed on today. Jensen is coming back very quickly. So they'll have the bones of the same team next year. And they'll probably have less distraction because Antonio Brown will be gone. So for me, it helps. When I said last week, I was hoping he'd come back because it makes a season more interesting and more storylines for us to discuss.
Michael, I want to give you a moment, sorry, but just to say, do you know who loves this more than maybe me? But do you know who loves this more than anything? The TV networks. Look at the home games the Bucks have next year. I mean, they play the Rams at home.
Chiefs.
Brady versus Stafford. Brady versus Mahomes. Brady versus Rodgers again, which is a very rare occurrence. Obviously, it's only occurred 3 times historically.
He goes to Levi's as well. Only the second time in his career.
Yeah.
And he has Burrow. He has Burrow as well.
Oh, that's right. That's the other one I was thinking of. Yeah, he has both Super Bowl participants. Like, it's unreal.
I genuinely, I'm happy enough. I'm not one can fault me at the minute. Everything's rosy. There's a couple of comments. Thanks everyone for their comments so far. Jerry McCarthy says, if Trubisky is the answer, what in God's name is the question? Darrell O'Keefe says, Brian, Baker, the New York Giants brand, you wouldn't take him. You would lead the Browns in 2021 playoffs, lost the Chiefs by 5.
Go back and watch their show week 4, week 5, week 6.
Brian Baker led in the playoffs. The next big thing didn't click OBJ coming in. Not right on it. Daniel Jones will be trimmed the Giants.
I wouldn't want Baker Mayfield. I'd rather run it back with Jones for a year. I don't think he's any better, but I certainly wouldn't want Baker Mayfield.
They're in an interesting division. We have a special guest coming on in a minute or two. Let's just publicly, and which is sort of why we're waiting for this person to come on. I think she might be here. She is here. Can I just apologize to this guest because this happened with Mark. There was no noise when someone came in. Colleen, welcome into the show. Big special guest.
What's up? Oh my God, guys. I'm so glad to be here. Thanks so much for having me on. I'm just chilling in the backyard out in Los Angeles. I'm sure it's just as warm there, right?
Well, we are 3 weeks out from LA, and Colleen, some of the stories I could tell you here would be incredible. Here, that's some setup in Inglewood. Like, that's an incredible setup that you have at the minute.
It's so nice that the new stadium is gorgeous, and then we have our studios in there, and it's like there's not a bad seat in the house. They have a ton of shows there. I haven't seen any concerts here, but I mean, the Super Bowl was amazing. The halftime show there, so it's okay. I mean, it's fine. It's all right. Los Angeles is okay.
Yeah, not too shabby. Colin, we are in the lead up to St. Patrick's Day, and we want to know, do you have any St. Patrick's Day traditions that you adhere to, or what will your St. Patrick's Day celebrations look like?
Is it I feel like I shouldn't be telling you guys that I celebrate St. Patrick's Day, but I don't know. Maybe I should. Like, what's the cool thing to do? I feel like it's not cool to celebrate, but maybe it is. When I was in college, we always used to do this thing called Aaron Express, and it was this gigantic bar crawl that would go all over the city, and it usually ended up in territory where you didn't quite remember exactly how the night ended. But I don't do that so much anymore. I might have my own Aaron Express at the house, just doing it at the crib. We'll see. But I don't really know. What you guys tell me. What should I do? How should I celebrate it?
James Palmer told us he is looking for somewhere to go drinking, and given your Philadelphia roots, you know, he also has a friend who cooks him cabbage. So I don't know if he can come over and cook cabbage as well. So maybe that's what to do.
Yeah, I feel like so. My mom's family is from County Mayo, and my dad's is from County Cork. And so I feel like growing up there was like cabbage involved on St. Patrick's Day, but I don't really remember how they made it. I feel like, is it boiled? Like, is this right? That doesn't sound good though.
Colleen, what's the temperature out there? We were in LA a few weeks ago, obviously, for the Super Bowl. We did a show outside SoFi on Saturday at 10:30 in the morning. It was very, very hot, and we walked away I certainly walked away like a lobster after.
It was okay. So that was like a crazy heat advisory, and everyone got burnt. I know that half of our show was on, like, they called it the lake set. And so it was obviously like it wasn't covered. They built this like glass platform over the water. So all of the sun reflected up. Everyone had suits on. So this was like not a great scenario for anyone. But that was like, I think it was like in the 70s. It wasn't even maybe like 76 that week. I bet, hold on, let me look right now because I bet it's probably like 67, I would say. There's a light breeze. I was in the house, so I have my sweatshirt on. I don't normally rock a sweatshirt in like 70-degree weather, but yeah, it's about that. I don't know. I'm not gonna waste time looking up looking up the temperature, but yeah, it's very nice out here. It's nice and sunny.
So, Colleen, actually, last week I was over with work. I was actually in Cali, and I had to go to Denver on the way back, which was horrendous because it was just snowy and horrible. I felt like how bad Russell Wilson's going to feel like playing there in such horrific conditions. But rather than talk about an overrated free agency move to the 13th best team in the
That's a
AFC,
disgraceful comment there.
I say that to wind up with two of my co-hosts here. I'd rather talk about an interesting thing for your beloved Eagles. So, Colleen, last year, 31st in the NFL in sacks, 29 sacks. You know, a Watt brother would call that breakfast. But
Yeah.
the Eagles were pretty pathetic in pass rush. And you picked up one of the premium players in free agency, Hassan Radick, ex-Temple guy. So he's played at home at Lincoln Financial
Yeah.
Field before. I mean, how excited are you about that move? And also, what's particularly catching your eye that you're kind of going, you know, we're all just looking at the ticker tape coming in. It's like, Jesus, all these moves.
I know. Okay, I
exciting time.
have so many thoughts right now. So, and I do want to go back to Denver. I want to revisit that. So stick a pin in that, and I will talk about Hassan Radick first because I was so happy when I saw this move for multiple reasons. First of all, yeah, Temple guy, played, in Philly, and I remember when he was coming out that year that he was at the Combine. I talked to a couple of our draft analysts, and one of the stories that I got from him was the fact that Hassan Radick's mom, I believe, if I'm remembering correctly, she had to take out a second mortgage on their home so she could afford a meal plan for Hassan at Temple because he wasn't on scholarship at the time. So just so he would be able to take part in everything at school and really get kind of the most out of the team experience because all of the guys were able to go and he wasn't. And so that was sort of my beginning introduction to Hassan Radick. And then I met him and his whole family, and they were just the nicest, sweetest, most genuine people in the world. And so just from a personal angle, I was so excited about that. And then obviously, this was such a need. And Hassan Radick has had 2 back-to-back baller seasons. And when he first got to Arizona, I just don't think that they were using him correctly. They weren't putting him in the best spot for him to excel and succeed. And then once they figured it out, you saw how well he could play, and it really paid dividends because he did it in Arizona, and then he took a chance on himself because he knew what he was able to do. He knew that he could excel again, and so he took that 1-year deal with the Panthers, and it paid off. And I just feel like there's no better place for him to land than Philadelphia, considering he grew up right there in Camden, New Jersey, and obviously the Eagles need help at that position. They always need a pass rusher, but absolutely after last year, we saw it. If you have 2 eyes and you watch football, you can absolutely tell that they need someone on the edge. So 'twas ever thus when you look at the Eagles' needs. It's a pass rusher. They always need a wide receiver. Who knows how they're going to address that, but they definitely need that as well. They could use safety help too, but I'm just happy that they got the pass rusher done. But I need to go back to Denver because what is the shade with the Russell Wilson deal? Why are you? I'm not. Catch me up. I'm not clued in on this.
So 2 of the gentlemen on this are Denver Broncos fans. I've hastened to miss the lauding of Russell Wilson as the second savior of, second coming of Christ. But I just like to point out that, one swallow doesn't make a summer. They were 13th in the AFC last year. They might be scraping into the playoffs now. That's a good improvement. I mean, from 13th to 7th would be good, guys. So,
I will say that Denver, playing at that altitude, like, that's no joke. Even just hosting a show at that altitude, I was feeling it. Like, it is a significant, I think, advantage for the Broncos to. Now, we haven't seen it, obviously, because they haven't had a quarterback in so long, and that's been, like, their biggest issue. I can't imagine being Jerry Jeudy. He must be over the moon at this point, because him and Courtland Sutton, it's like, they haven't had a guy. They've had, like, multiple guys come through, but never someone who could really take advantage of the situation. And I think for Russell, like, once he gets up to speed with that altitude, that's only going to help. That division is so interesting now to me too, because you think about some of the best games we saw this season in the regular season. You think about that Thursday night game between the Chiefs and the Chargers. That was at SoFi. That was one of the wildest games, I thought, of the year, until I saw the finale of the regular season with the Chargers and the Raiders. And I was all like, oh my God, how about the tie? They need to tie. It's going to be the best thing ever. I would never root for a tie, but in that instance, I had to. And then obviously the playoffs happened and Chiefs Bills blew everything out of the water. But it was such an exciting year with the teams in that division. And now you have Justin Herbert, and adding Russell Wilson in there with Patrick Mahomes and even Derek Carr. It's just, I think it's so much fun.
It's going to be one hell of a season for the whole league, Colleen. I've got 2 questions for you, okay?
Okay.
First off, you obviously done, like, the London coverage in LA last year, very early start for you. Any plans to get over to Germany? We're hearing whispers. It's going to be the Bucks, but we're hearing whispers it could be the Bucks against the Chiefs. And secondly, Barry Corrigan, who I'm presuming with that surname, lads and ladies, is from Ireland. Colleen Rock's favorite Philly athlete of 2022, Ben Simmons or Jalen Rieger?
All right, you got jokes. So it's not going to be Ben Simmons. That's for sure. You know what? I guess by default, I have to pick Jalen Rieger. But I'm not happy about the position that I've been put in there. Wait, what was the first question? I completely forgot.
Germany,
London coverage and coming over to Germany. My God. Okay, first of all, these London games, covering them would probably be a lot more convenient, a lot more fun if I was there, because I think we're on the air at 4 a.m. in LA here. So I'm, like, leaving my house at, like, I don't know, 11:30 at night, when you count in, like, production meetings and all the other stuff. So it would be really nice to get over there. I love London. I just love traveling, but I did my study abroad over in London. So I have a little soft spot in my heart for it, but I've never been to Germany before. And so you better believe that I've already been hitting up all of my bosses, texting, emails. Every time I have a conversation, I'm like, oh yeah, so, like, who's going over to Germany? And I know every single one of my coworkers is doing the same thing. I have no idea if they're going to send us over there, but if they do, should we all get together?
Absolutely. And that Barry, I tell you what, Colleen, Barry, seriously, that question, man, I just read it. I was like, oh, happy days, Colleen. Yeah, so yeah. Brooklyn,
yeah,
no idea.
We have okay. If I come over to Germany, then where do I have to go? Like, where would you guys recommend over there?
You come on your live show for a start.
Yeah.
Okay, that's fine.
We've got a few places lined up
in the itinerary.
Yeah, we've got a few places lined up in Munich, Colleen. It just might involve a beverage or 7. It's
that's
good.
Great. I love 7 beverages. Perfect.
Colleen,
what's the beverage of choice?
Oh,
the way.
I'd say in Germany, it's wait, if you're mixing the Irish and the Germans, there's going to be all sorts of beer going on. I imagine. I don't think we'll be. I think we'll be spoiled for choice, unlike NFL teams and QBs this off season. And given your Philly ties, how do you feel about having to play Carson Wentz twice a year?
I love it. So I feel like I manifested this because I kept saying that I wanted Carson Wentz to land with Washington just for that reason. And then the icing on the cake is the fact that Washington plays the Colts this year too. So the only thing that my next request that I would like to manifest here is that the first Washington meeting with the Eagles is in Philadelphia on the schedule. I want the Philly version first because I would like for the stadium to just play on loop during warm-ups, Dreams and Nightmares that from Meek Mill. That was the year that they won the Super Bowl with Nick Foles. I feel like that can really get into his head because I'm petty like that. So I like to, do little social experiments to see what happens. But I think that the whole thing, the way that it fell apart in Indianapolis is just so spectacular. Not in a good way, just it was just such a spectacular failure. And the fact that the Colts lost so much on that deal too, and now they don't have a quarterback, and they have all of the other aspects of a championship level team, and they have a quarterback friendly offense. So they have this running game with Jonathan Taylor, and they have the offensive line. They really just need someone they can plug in who is not going to mess the whole thing up at the end of the season. And look, it wasn't just those two games against Jacksonville and the Raiders. There were plenty of other moments that you could point to throughout the season for the Colts. And I think specifically about a game that they won, but watching it was not because of Carson Wentz. It was when the Colts played the Patriots late in the year. It was before Christmas. I can't remember exactly what week that was, but at a certain point in that game in the fourth quarter, Frank Reich had to take the ball out of Carson Wentz's hands and just completely did not trust him at all to get anything done and just gave the ball to Jonathan Taylor. And that was the only reason they won that game. And so many times they've had to do that. So they just need someone that can effectively run the offense. But I don't know who that is. I don't know if maybe they try and make a play for Jimmy G and his flaws, but maybe that's a situation that Frank Reich could thrive in and really help him out, and he wouldn't have to do too much. He's already coming from a run heavy offense in San Francisco, so maybe it works better in Indianapolis, but that's a tough sitch that they're in right now. And I don't hate that Carson Wentz is back in the NFC East because the NFC East is always messy.
Colleen, speaking of Indianapolis, we had James Palmer on last week, and he was slightly concerned with the stories that are going around that the combine is going to get moved out of Indianapolis because he was talking about those 3 bars that everybody goes to, and it's such a great week, and everybody goes off and gets drunk to 3 or 4 in the morning. You were there. You were putting up some really good, humorous videos of you doing all the workouts and stuff. And it's a great week, he says.
It's such a good week, and I really hope that it doesn't move because it's just convenient there. Like having the Super Bowl in Los Angeles, it was beautiful, and there was a lot of glamorous spots that you could have different events. But Indianapolis, the whole point of the combine is really the stuff that goes on behind the scenes. And for me, it feels like the drills, that's almost like window dressing for the actual event, because the actual event is all of the networking that goes on. It's meeting all of the agents and the coaches and the GMs, and it's all of these deals that are getting done right now and have our heads just completely spinning. All of those started or were pushed during the combine, because you can't walk down the street without running into someone that works for the NFL. And that's just how it is. It's like an NFL convention, and all of the reporters are there, and all of your friends from here's everybody from ESPN, and here's SI, and here's CBS Sports. And it's just like a really cool thing that never happens anywhere else. No other time of year is everyone all together. And if it's in a different city, you're not going to have that because there's only like a handful of places that everybody goes in Indianapolis. And it's almost like a nostalgic thing too. So everyone knows that, okay, after you go to, this, then you end up at like Prime, you go to the same establishments, and that's where you run into everyone. And it just feels like if they move it, I'm not sure that a lot of these coaches and GMs are even going to go. They'll probably just send their scouting departments. And then that means like agents, it just kind of waters it down. I don't want that. I want the full thing. I want it the way that it is now. I don't like change, guys. So I'm hoping that it stays in Indy for at least a couple more years.
Sounds like the Irish NFL show needs a trip to Indy for the Combine.
Yeah.
You have to. It is a must-go event.
I was a little bit worried where Brian was starting. Like, everyone's drinking till 3-4 in the morning. Colleen, you were there. It was like you trying to. And anyway, Colleen, you're mentioning. I mean, obviously Carson Wentz, as a Philly fan, it would be great for you that he can win you games by throwing the ball to Philly players yet again, just in a different way around. And you mentioned the Colts with the week that's in it. I'm kind of wondering, are they just phoning up Andrew Luck and saying, are you sure? Look at what Tom did. Do you fancy coming back?
I mean, where is Andrew Luck even? Has anyone seen him? Is he like in a bunker somewhere? I don't know where he's been, but I feel like they're probably hitting up Phillip Rivers too. Who knows? Like I if I were them, I would be calling everyone possible because the options aren't great. Beyond the big names that already have fallen, it was like Mitchell Trubisky was the big deal, and that doesn't feel great, and he's already gone anyway. And I thought that he was going to end up with the Giants because of all of the brass coming down from the Bills, and Trubisky had said that he just having that time in Buffalo really made a difference. He was overthinking things when he was in Chicago. The offense wasn't, he didn't say this, but the offense wasn't really tailored to him. So maybe he is going to pan out, and just seeing the way that Josh Allen goes through all of his business, like I think that's huge for him. But beyond that, there's really not a lot of big names. I mean, I guess like maybe an Andy Dalton. I don't know, but it's a weird year for the quarterback market for sure.
I love it. Andy
that
Dalton
feels horrible. Andy Dalton.
I know, right? It's not great. Not good.
Colleen, I have to share, Michael, sorry to interrupt, but I have to share, actually, I saw on a Steelers site, actually, a great line. They said, if the Chargers and the Raiders had drawn, and you'd said to us that would be the worst thing that happened to us in 2022, I would have taken it if it meant that Mitch Trubisky wasn't our starting quarterback next season.
Oh,
and I was like, that's pretty harsh, but probably true.
It's so sad. I think that who knows if he's even going to be the starter, because they might draft someone too. They could, and not that this class is blowing anyone out of the water, but he's going to have to fend off Mason Rudolph and maybe Dwayne Haskins, and maybe if they draft someone. So it's not looking great, but there are options.
Colleen, you've been extremely generous with your time in the off season. It's great to chat to you. Just finally, what's the plans over the next few weeks and months? Are you going to chill for a bit, draft? I know you've got a few podcasts on the go as well and shows. What's up?
I'm chilling. I'm going to take some time to do that, some more time to chill. But I have a show coming up starting on the 22nd, once a week, Mock Draft Live. And that's pretty fun. We just like pick apart our analyst mock drafts. So we'll have Daniel Jeremiah, Bucky Brooks, and then we'll bring on everyone and kind of see what they're thinking. And so that's always a nice primer for the draft too, because you kind of get a good idea of a little background on the prospects and then some team needs, especially after the chips fall with free agency. So check that out. I'm sure I'll be on Around the NFL podcast, little Split Ends podcast, if we bring that back at some point. So I'm all over the place.
Well, thanks so much for coming on. Look, who knows if we got to LA this side of Christmas, but we'll definitely buy you a drink in Germany if you're there. Thanks, Colleen, for your support and coming on. And here, enjoy, because before you know it, it'll be football time again. Colleen,
it always happens so fast. Thank you guys so much, and I hope to see you in Germany.
See you, Colleen. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Colleen.
Bye.
Oh, Colleen, thanks so much for coming on. Absolute legend. Lads, there's a whole button here, right, for a start. I know there's things to talk about, but there's a button and I can't hear people coming in. That's why you were sitting there, Mark, for 5 minutes. Right, we're going to spin the wheel one last time here. That's right, Mark. Marty Whelan is now on the show. If anybody could see Mark's expression, he literally looked like a man that wanted to go to bed. And anywho, there is some breaking news.
Marty's good crowd.
CJ Azuma, tight end for the Bengals, 3-year deal, $24 million to the Jets. How are we feeling about that? Colin, go for it.
I mean, I suppose I hope his knee is okay. I think he got rushed back for the Super Bowl again. Another NFL WWE moment where he ripped off the knee brace and the crowd went wild, but it felt a bit like Henry Shefflin in the Super Bowl. So he did. I think he made a couple of catches, but he wasn't himself. For the Bengals, it's been all about shoring up that O-line. I think for them, there will always be that image of Chase with Ramsey on the ground and what could have been. So I think they were first out off the blocks today with the in the legal tampering period. They managed. I saw various tweets about the quickness. They managed to get a deal done in whether it was 60, 90, or 120 seconds. They were shoring up that offline to keep Joe Burrow nice and safe.
Just a quick one. Just earlier, and we're talking about defensive tackles and whether they can stop the run. They've gone in heavy on Jacksonville. They've just signed Austin Johnson, who was defensive tackle for the Giants, and probably one of the bright spots over the past 2 years. So pretty much to what we discussed earlier, another player as part of this whole process to put this defense back together and make them very competitive within the division. So on the CJ one, it's a good signing, but the Jets have had many a good signing in the offseason and hasn't played out. So I'm more impressed with the one they got today, which was Laken Tomlinson coming in from the 49ers, who's a really, really solid offensive line player to get in, who will do a good job in terms of protecting the quarterback of the future for the Jets, hopefully.
Yeah, I mean, Bengals, the CJ was their spirit animal around the Super Bowl time with that, as you say, Colin, the WWE move. But I mean, he was embodying the kind of the combination of the team. He's a key part, actually, really there as a bailout receiver for Joe Burrow, but also a very strong blocker. He's a good two-way tight end. So it's a good pickup for the Jets. It's a loss for the Bengals. But, on a personal level, he's going there to be missed by Zach Wilson high, going to be missed by him low, going to be missed by him by about 5 yards to the left and 5 yards to the right from time to time. So that's disappointing for him because he won't catch as many passes. It's also, I mean, look, there's literally so many deals happening. Obviously, as we're live, as you see in the updates go in, some underrated ones going on. Look in the AFC East, I do regularly, as you might imagine, being a Patriots fan. But Mike McDaniel and the Dolphins committing to their running back of the future in relation to Chase Edmonds, that's interesting. Everyone was looking to see who is going to be the running back there because of the success they've had with the run game, obviously on his offensive scheme in the 49ers. And you see Buffalo making corresponding moves. Obviously, Tim Settle now going there as DT. Everybody's got to watch their run games playing against the Dolphins this year. And the Bills were a bit weak at times in the running game, although obviously overall a very, very strong defense. So fascinating to see the moves. But nobody won the Super Bowl in March, guys. So there's plenty to go.
The Rams did. Let's just end the show on this. Keith saying best and worst deals today. I'll go first. The best one I think is Hassan Radick. I love it. I think the Eagles have got an absolute stud there, boys. The worst one? Right. Well, I guess if you're looking at finances, Kirk. What the, boys, this is I don't want to start bringing politicians, but this is Celtic Tiger sort of stuff, boys. I guess it's BFO sort of stuff, lad. What's going on? Anyway, Colin, what's yours?
I think the Bears have overpaid for Larry O. I think given what they have given to him, I think that's a little bit too much. And I'm gonna say that Mike McDaniel bringing in, as Mark has talked about, bringing Edmonds as the running back. Everything he does, right? Running backs are going to be key to what they want to do. So I suppose in some ways I like that, though I always have concerns about paying running backs, but I'm intrigued to see what the Dolphins will look like and what he is able to do as a head coach. We know that as an X's and O's guy, he's absolutely phenomenal. I'm really interested to see how that translates into being a head coach. So that's my thoughts at the moment. But there are so many guys out there who have yet to sign. Von Miller, Bobby Wagner, Allen Robinson, Chandler Jones. We talked about Zed Smith getting released by the Packers. There's a long way to go just yet.
We saw on the very first day of free agency last year, the Chiefs go very heavy, having come off a Super Bowl defeat in terms of getting the offensive line corrected, and the Bengals have done the same tonight. I suppose that's an impressive part for me. The fact that they recognised very quickly, they knew it was wrong, they knew it needed to be corrected. Now whether they've got value for what they've put in, we'll only see when the season comes around. But they've already brought in two very experienced players who've had deep playoff runs. And for me, Evan Ingram, he's gone to the Jags. Good luck with him. He's an absolute bust, and I'm sure he'll be a bust in Jacksonville because that's the player he is. He can't catch a ball.
Yeah, actually, Colin makes a great point. The people that haven't signed is probably one of the most intriguing things about this. But the best deals, I mean, it's easy to look at the big money and you can say that they've overpaid, but the Bucs absolutely need to secure Ryan Jensen. They couldn't afford to lose him. It's a big deal for a center, but it was worthwhile. Brian alluded to Laken Tomlinson at the Jets, great move, but it's a lot of money to commit to a guard. I mean, was it 10.5 mil average? And then as well, the Chargers with JC Jackson, probably the premier corner available on the free agent market. It's a hell of a lot of money, 40 million guaranteed, 82 million deal. But you saw their defense last year, guys. They absolutely needed to start putting some pieces together, and they're really getting the number one shutdown corner there. Deals I hate, I mean, Trubisky just generally playing football, probably I hate to a large extent. But actually, I'll say the Cards and James Conner. I don't get it. Overpayment by a million miles, 3-year deal for running back. And he hasn't appeared anything like the running back he was in Pittsburgh in the last while. So I just think that's an appalling overpayment, to be honest with you. But it's a good thing I'm not an NFL coach or general manager.
That's it.
Can I just a very quick point just before we go, right? What's interesting is in free agency, right? And Field Yates tweeted about this earlier, about it have its perils, but essentially the big spenders, generally you get a big bump. 2016, the Giants were the big spenders. They won 5 additional games in comparison to the previous year. The Jags won 7 in 2017. The Bears won 7 in 2018, and so on. But it tends to be a 1-year bump because the following year, the Giants lost 8 more games. The Jags lost 5 more games. So teams who make a big splash in free agency can very often it comes back to haunt them. So definitely, we're all talking right now about these deals and the splash, but the devil is in the detail when it comes to the contracts.
Absolutely. I just want to thank everyone that's commented tonight, both on the live show and just also on Twitter all day. It's been great crack all day. In the evening time, of course, checking out all the tweets and all the action. Can I also thank Mark Hogan for his editing on some of the on the post today? They've been fantastic and it's really helped our coverage. So thanks a million, Mark. And just for everyone that's interacted over the last few days, to Clean for coming on. And that's it. That's it. So we're back, I think August the 27th, the Aviva. Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Well,
Mark. Sorry. That's Mark. Now, Mark, we'll see you in August, and then Mark heard Kaleem was on, and he had to come on. Yeah, I'm joking. I think we're back tomorrow night.
Well,
And then we're back on Sunday.
there's a few more deals. There's the draft. There's the domestic game. Obviously, really big kickoff yesterday. It was great to see, fully padded competitive football back across the island, and managed to get along to one of the games. And definitely would encourage people to get along if you get the opportunity. And as you say, Michael, we will have the college game in Dublin in August.
And we're back tomorrow night. I'm just joking. Can I just also say on that local game, up the Cowboys? I never thought I'd say those words before, but they're my local team. So up the Cowboys. And congratulations to the Cowboys. They're 10 miles from me. So until I start my own team here and become GM, that is my situation. That's it, lads. All good? All good?
Yeah.
Excellent.
Tomorrow.
Yeah, all good? Excellent. Thanks to our sponsors. We've got an extra special additional interview tonight. Brian, would you like to introduce him?
Well, we're speaking of the offensive line tonight, and how key it is, because we say it's quarterback lead, but without the offensive line, you don't get anywhere. And this guy has some really good years with the Packers. He protected one of the best quarterbacks ever played in the league before moving on to Carolina and playing in some big championship games. Michael Wall, been on the show, was previously came back on to talk some Packers ahead of free agency starting, and I'm sure this evening he's keep a keen eye on everything that's going on. So yeah, really good to have him back on the show.
One night down, another few to go, no doubt. I can't wait for tomorrow, boys. See you then.
Yeah.
Okay, everyone. So free agency frenzy. It's been a mad few days, lads. Russell Wilson, Aaron Rodgers staying. Going to talk about the Packers. Going to talk about the NFL now. Obviously, with our friend Michael Wall. Michael, it's fantastic to have you back on the show again. And, obviously a guy like yourself has experienced so much in the league on the week that it is. A very, very warm welcome back into the Irish NFL show.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. It's a lot to talk about. Excited to see you guys again.
Lots to talk about. And look, we may as well kick off, given your the Packers connections, obviously. Tuesday, Aaron announces that he's going to be staying with the Green Bay Packers. A little bit of conflicting reports as to the contract, and that's all to be sorted out. But I suppose just in terms of from the outside, it wasn't a huge surprise. I would say it always felt he was going back there, but until it's confirmed, it's not confirmed. But as somebody with such ties to the Packers, what are your thoughts about Rodgers coming back, but also obviously the franchise tag of Davante Adams?
Well, I think on the first thing, I agree with you that it seemed like an inevitable conclusion. Apparently, there was a real thought to whether or not he's going to retire. That was actually a real consideration. I think maybe different than other years when last year it actually seemed he was angry with the organization. And so now you maybe do start talking about, am I going to go to Pittsburgh? Am I going to go to Denver? But it seemed with this season, the way things went, the relationships I think that he fostered or improved on with Goody and with the rest of Russ and the rest of the guys in the head office, it really did seem like, am I going to not play at all, or am I going to play for Green Bay? And obviously everybody's really happy that he made that decision. If you look at it from, his importance to the city, his importance to the organization, Aaron Rodgers is responsible for hundreds of millions of dollars in other players' contracts, in coaches' contracts. You see some of his coaches getting promoted to other teams, whether it's head coach, offensive coordinator. He is probably the most responsible person in Green Bay, Wisconsin for all of that success. And I don't think it's lost on anyone. So certainly excited that he's coming back, giving them the best opportunity to come back and make that Super Bowl push again. And then with Davante, the Davante Adams things is very difficult, not knowing how long Brett wants to play. And I'm just talking about it from Davante's standpoint. The franchise tag in this instance might make the most sense for a guy like Davante, although, that clock, that bonus cap plus 3 years, that clock doesn't start running on whatever the next contract looks like. But because we don't really know how long Davante or how long Aaron's going to play, Davante is very aware of his legacy. He's very aware of his standing in the National Football League as the top receiver or as a top 2 or 3 receiver. And so if he's a guy that wants to make the Hall of Fame, that is going to come in the form of playing with Aaron Rodgers for as long as possible. And then the minute Aaron leaves, probably not wasting some of those prime years with a Jordan Love or a younger quarterback, probably going somewhere where he can really have the 100, 120, catch seasons. So I don't know how that's going to play out in terms of long-term deals because we don't know the terms of Aaron's contract yet, but obviously as a Packer fan, thrilled to have both back.
Mike, during the week, a number of Packers fans who I spoke to, was delighted with the news that both players essentially are staying. They're also slightly concerned about where that leaves them for other players in terms of Valdez-Scantling. It looks like he's going to get paid in free agent, and Smith on the defense, who was really productive. Is there a concern that because of so much money consumed in the Rodgers contract that they're going to lose really key players on both sides of the ball for next season?
Well, so there's two things there, right? And Adam Schefter has made a career of kind of breaking news, but you think about the Aaron Rodgers legacy, this whole thing over the last year and a half. He's put out some tweets and some information that wasn't necessarily, let's just say, completely factual. And I know this last one that broke, I don't know if it was him or not, but the contract's not out yet. We don't know what that contract looks like. And I don't know if Aaron's ever actually said, I need to be a $50 million a year guy, right? He might be. I wouldn't be surprised. I would be just as surprised if he made $50 million or if he went in for vet minimum or made like $1 million and just said, I want to bring back a team. I want my guys to get paid because he's already ridiculously wealthy. So nothing would surprise me at this point. As it pertains to bringing other guys back, look, I think right now they're $27 million over the cap. They already did a deal with Kenny. They did a deal with Aaron Jones, and I know there's one other prominent player that I'm missing his name right now. But they're like $27 million over the cap. You got to add about $13 million in for your rookie contracts. The cap just went up to like $208 million. So you start doing like funny math, realizing that your priorities are probably Devontae. You're gonna have to get. You would love to be able to bring back Campbell, right? You'd love to bring back Campbell. MVS, Lazard's a restricted free agent. Are you going to bring Preston back? Are you going to bring Z back? What are all these questions? I think with the team now, once you say, I have the best player in football, I have the best receiver in football, I think our offensive line is going to get 3 players back. You kind of start going, Aaron's done a pretty good job of making receivers good players. Right? You think about Jordy, you think about Greg, you think about Donald the second half of his career. I mean, he's made a lot of guys really good players. I'm pretty confident that they can make a second or third receiver out of somebody else if MVS can't show up or can't come to terms. But on the defensive side, I think they have arguably the best front 7 in football right now. Now, you could say maybe San Francisco has claim to that title, but they're a top 2 or 3 front 7. And Devontae Campbell was a huge part of that. He was all pro for this year for the first time. It was really his breakout year in year 6 or 7. And so you want to make sure that if it's at all possible to get that guy back, which I don't know what it is, you just got to start prioritizing. I don't know if it's going to be as good a team next year, except for the fact that you're going to get those offensive line better. So, those guys back. So that might make the difference. But, anytime you have Devontae and Aaron, I think you have a chance to win the Super Bowl.
Mike, is there anyone, and look, there's been a lot of names either traded or talked about or free agents and tags over the last few days. Is there anyone in the league that maybe sticks out to you that maybe hasn't been talked about that much this week when in the free agency that you're keeping a close eye on, or anything that
as far as potential free agents?
Yeah.
That's a really good question. So there's a couple linemen that I really like. I'll be interested to see where Scherf goes. I think he's a top player. I know he's been injured the last couple of years, but he's probably a top 3 guard in the National Football League. He's got the Kirk Cousins treatment there with the Commanders as far as being franchised twice. Now he's going to get paid again. He'll be an asset to anywhere that'll be able to fetch that price tag. Ryan Jensen's a guy who's a center he was a center for Baltimore, and then he came over was the center for Tampa. I think he's been the top center in the league for the last couple of years. I love the way he plays. He's the kind of guy that changes the demeanor of an entire offense, right? Like you might say that Creed Humphreys had a better year, or you might say that Frank Ragnow's a better center, but that guy changes the entire demeanor of your offense because he's one of those just gnarly, I'm going to get in your face, I'm going to hit you through the echo of the whistle, I'm going to push you late. He's going to change the way you think about running your operation, and that kind of guy is like a force multiplier for me. So I would be really interested to see who's lucky enough to pick him up in free agency if he doesn't go back to Tampa.
Mike, I suppose obviously Rodgers and Davante Adams are the big story, but one of the other things the Packers have done since we last spoke to you was make a big change at special teams and actually you know, I suppose I'm interested in a couple of things on this. One, are you surprised that they didn't do more during the season? Because it was a bit like watching the 2010 Chargers all over again. But yeah, remember them?
Yes.
But also, you know, in terms of bringing in Rich Bisaccia, what are your thoughts on him and what he can do with this franchise?
I would start by saying this, guys, and the Green Bay Packers have had the luxury for 30 plus years of having a Hall of Fame quarterback under center. And that hides a lot of problems. And that hid a lot of problems with Holmgren, with Sherman, with McCarthy, and now with LaFleur, right? And they can all be great coaches. I'm not taking anything away from them. Here's where I had a real problem with the whole deal. We know that special teams has been a problem for years. You know, you have a coach that's up for Coach of the Year this year. You have a 13-4 ball club, could easily been 14-3, best team in the NFC. You have the two-time reigning, MVP of the National Football League. You're supposed to be all these great things, and you have the worst special teams in football. Statistically, you have the worst special teams in football. That speaks to me a lot about what kind of culture you're running in your building. Like you don't have a design culture. You don't have a methodology in place that demands excellence at every position, right? You have a culture by default. And so I'm glad they addressed it, but when you look back in 10 years from now and you think about the talent they had, you think about the improvement that they made on defense from year to year and the opportunity to win. They beat the Rams. I mean, they were better than they beat the Bengals. I mean, they beat all these teams. And I think when we look back at this season, unless if they win 2 right now, then nobody's going to think about it. But if they don't, this is probably the best team that they're going to have, in a 5-10 year span. And they really missed out. And again, I don't understand how you have all that success and you're not addressing being the worst in the league at something. Like, that really bothers me as a former player, as a guy who wants to compete for championships, and as a Packers fan.
Mike, the last time you were on, you said it's a quarterback league, but your quarterback will only go as far as your offensive line will go. But yet we saw a Bengals team that somehow managed to go to the Super Bowl. 9 sacks in the playoff game against the Titans, 7 sacks in the Super Bowl. I mean, they've got a lot there and they can work on it, I suppose, a return to the playoffs, but they would have to address the offensive line, you would think, this offseason.
Yeah, great point. And I'll say this, guys. Joe Burrow's an absolute unicorn. He's an absolute unicorn. I've never the concept that offensive line just doesn't matter. I mean, we might as well just go play Madden or go play 7-on-7, right? Because it doesn't even matter with him. He's that talented. Have we ever seen a Super Bowl where you could leave the Super Bowl and go, they should probably fire some of their offensive staff? Like, I mean, the question had to arise at some point. Okay, we just led the league in sacks given up. And granted, you can always give some to the young quarterback, but they were objectively awful on the offensive line. And he was still able to make all these things happen. And I just looked at it like this, because they didn't change the play calling. He didn't change the way he operated. They didn't change their blocking. When you look at that offensive line, the way that you can tell if an offensive line is well coached in the National Football League. Let's take like the talent of the players, whether you got first rounders, fifth rounders, whatever. Take that off the board. An offensive line is well coached if they can do 2 things. Can they double team effectively? So can they move the 3 technique or the 5 technique to the linebacker and block both? And can they pass off games in pass protection consistently? Not every time, but consistently. The Bengals couldn't do either all year. And so it is absolutely baffling. And they've invested in their offensive line, in draft picks, in free agents, and they're not getting it done. So it's like you got to start peeling back the layers and go, okay, what's the underlying problem here? And I'll leave that to the smarter people to figure out.
Mike, last one from me, man. Just like, look, there's a lot of Packers fans, and we had this on our last chat. There's a lot of Packers fans over here, and I'm saying this in every interview at the minute, lads. But Mike, obviously, Packers coming to London it's a huge deal over here. Like, it's really become a thing. And are you going to try and fly over for this? That's going to be a hard ticket to get, Mike. It could be a hard ticket to get.
Yeah. If anybody has a B&B and a ticket, man, I'll wash some dishes or something. I'm not sure what it's going to take, but I'm excited about it. I think it's hard for the Green Bay Packers to leave Lambeau, right? I think that's, just for what it does for the community from a financial standpoint, even. I think it's hard for them to leave Lambeau. So I'm glad they're getting over there. The fans, I know the UK fans are largely big Packer fans. Even when the great thing about going to the games in London is like you can be at like a Bucks Bears game and you'll see like Cowboys jerseys in the stands, and there's like they just love the sport and you're just trying to represent whoever you represent and just go watch some football. But I think you're going to see a lot of Packers fans, Packers jerseys in that stadium. I know I've been over there twice as a coach, working the sidelines there, and it's an incredible experience. So I'm definitely looking forward to that. I'm going to try to make it over.
I think every NFL fan on this side of the Atlantic is looking forward to that one, Mike. And we appreciate you taking the time to join us today. And as we, get ready for St. Patrick's Day, can you let our viewers know where they can find you? You do a couple of podcasts, and where they can find you on social media?
Yeah, I do the Process to Perform podcast. You can pick it up as a player development podcast for parents, players, and coaches. You can pick that up anywhere you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, iTunes. The On My Block podcast I do with Packers all-time leading rusher and good friend, good teammate of mine, Amon Green. So that's Packers, but that's also, we kind of dive into a little bit of everything there. A lot of miscellaneous information coming out. You can get that anywhere you get your podcast. You can find me on Twitter, Mike Wall 68. Process to Perform on Instagram, and then athlete development stuff, just go to processtoperform.com.
Mike, just continued success, and thank you so much for coming on, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys.